how to deal with the sorrows and setbacks of life. Tribulations that we go through in life, the sufferings, the hardships, the heartbreaks, all these things. Because this will happen. I think that anybody who doesn't suffer in life, anybody who is like these people who are always happy, who are all like, something's wrong with those people. Like, I don't think that that's normal. I think that that suffering is normal in life. Like, suffering is even almost, you could almost say it's a good thing in a way. There's a lot of ways that it could be good. It's a part of life. It creates character. It causes you to appreciate the better things in life. And it causes you to put in perspective what things are really important in life. People who don't suffer are usually surface type people. People on the surface. They're easily amused, easily distracted. They're not very loyal. They don't have very good character, right? Suffering causes you to appreciate what is good about life and what is important about life. It causes you to really appreciate the good things in life, really. And it causes you to be able to appreciate things that you didn't see before, if that makes sense. It causes you to appreciate things that you didn't recognize before. I've seen both sides. I haven't always suffered, even though I've always had sufferings. There's been periods of my life where I've been very happy. I've been very surface, topical, shallow in my own happiness and enjoyment. And in a way, those times were really good because it's good to just, like they say, ignorance is bliss. It's good to just be happy, live in the moment. It's good, sort of. There's pros and cons to each thing, right? But ultimately, I appreciate my sufferings. Ultimately, I appreciate the things that I've been through at my age. I'm not too old and I'm not too young, so I'm able to verify what I'm talking about, that I've been through all kinds of crap, all flavors, all varieties of suffering. Trust me when I say that. I have been through many, many things, and I'm sure I'll probably go through many, many things. Today, for example, I bought a $1,000 camera maybe 4 months ago. It's a professional camera. And then I boneheadedly, stupidly bought a $100 lens, right? You got to have really quality, expensive lenses to go with your quality, expensive camera. Well, I learned the hard way. I bought a really cheap lens for $100 thinking, oh, this is going to be a decent little deal. Because of the price. Oh, it's a 35 millimeter, it's good for my camera, $100. And the frickin' thing stuck, the lens stuck on the camera body. The $1,000 camera body is now stuck to a $100 lens. I called Amazon, told them what happened with the product that I ordered, the lens. They're gonna give me a refund, but it's probably gonna cost me the refund and plus a little bit more to get it fixed off that camera. And hopefully it can get fixed off that camera. I'm pretty sure from my research, my Google research, that it can get taken off that camera, but it's gonna cost me like $150 to get it taken off the camera, which is $50 more than I actually paid for the lens. So essentially it's a $150 loss because I don't think I'll be able to use that lens any longer. So essentially it's a $150 loss, right? That's a loss that pisses me off, and I gotta sit with the anxiety and worry of, is this gonna ruin my camera? Maybe they can't take it off my camera. Maybe I'll be stuck with this $1,000 camera with the crappy little 35 millimeter $100 lens on it. Oh shit, right? Because my goal is to be a wedding photographer. I need this camera. I don't make money. I don't make a lot of money. I'm not rich to afford a $1,000 camera. Some people, it's nothing to them. They don't give a shit. Like, these type of people, they don't suffer the same way. When you're poor, you go through these things, you suffer, right? I mean, that's just one thing. I mean, there's so many others. So many other things that I've suffered. If you listen to my channel, you know that I went through a horrible breakup about 5 years ago, which red-pilled me to the core, taught me so much about female nature, which was a positive way, or a positive sign in and of itself, right? I learned about crappy female nature. So anyway, I wanted to start off by saying that there's a lot of suffering in life, and that suffering is a part of life, and that's a red pill in and of itself, right? So I want to talk about how to deal with it, how you live, how you manage. I mean, we do live and we do manage. We do, find a way to keep going, pick up and keep going. And there's a lot to say, man. There's a lot to say. But I want to start off kind of by reading this here. This is something that somebody posted on one of my videos when I was talking about my black pill rant last week. And I was thinking about this comment. And this guy's 19, and I don't know, man. I mean, life is hard for everybody, and it's hard for some people more than others. And we all are given a deck of cards. Some people have better decks, some people have better, some people got better deals, they're better looking, they have more money their parents have more money, they have more natural ingrained ability to make money or get themselves out of, pits and things like that. I'm someone who was dealt a pretty crappy hand of cards, so I can relate with things like this. I'm also someone who has the ability somewhat to do some things, and I have had some success in my life at some things, right? So to put things in perspective, I was talking about how I slept with 26 girls, and I was complaining because the girls that all the girls that I slept with, were not better than a 5 or 6 out of 10, and here this guy is, he's 19, and he's saying, here I am, 19 years old and a virgin, listening to all your sexual experiences as a teen, and it's suicide fuel for me, as I've been constantly rejected and laughed at all through school by girls for my appearance. It really makes me realize how much I'm really missing out in life and how I'll never experience teen love like you did. I hate and don't love myself. Good for you, bro. I mean, this is just sad, man. And it's like, I don't know. Let me read my response. So I said, the love I experienced wasn't deep or lasting. It was brief and very shallow, probably more on my end than hers too. Life is hard. It can be very cruel. I'm by no means successful just because I've had girlfriends and some sex. Keep living because that's what we do. Now that's a hard thing to tell somebody who's never had a girlfriend and never had sex, because I know what that's like. That's like some rich guy saying, oh yeah, well I had $1 million, but I blew right through it and I wish I had it now, but I don't have it. And it's like, well, at least you had it. It's that old saying, it's better to love and have lost than to never love at all. And that's kind of true in a way. But also, I don't know, sometimes I think about like maybe be better off if you never had it at all, because it's like, it's like, say, cocaine, for instance, or something. Like you try it once and you're like, man, I want that again, but you can never get it again. Like you always feel that loss of, oh, I remember what that was like and I haven't had it since and it was so great. So in a way, it's almost better not to have it, in a way, but I get it. I 100% get where this guy's coming from. He's like, at least you had it. I've never even had it. I want to taste it, and I can't even taste it. It's like somebody who has no legs, and he's like, I want to walk, as opposed to somebody who had legs and then lost them. What's worse? Well, at least you have those memories, I guess, of the time that you did have legs, right? I don't know, man. It's a hard one. Then this is just indicative of life in general. There's suffering in life, man. It's full of suffering, So I'm trying to encourage this guy not to commit suicide, not to want to take his own life. And, I've been there, man. I've been there where I've been suicidal, where I've been so down. I mean, you get to a place where you think you'll never feel happy again. You get to a place where you feel like it's so shitty and it was so much better before, and then this happened and that happened, or one of the shitty things about not having something is that when you do get something, you think that it's the greatest thing ever, and then you lose it, and then you become more depressed, almost more depressed than you were before you had it. Right? At least that's my experience, you know, because I was hungry for like love when I was 20. You know, he says he's 19. When I was I think I started really hungering for love when I was like 22, 21, around there. I mean, I always wanted love back to like age 16, but I don't know, I was distracted by other things. And so right around 21, 22 is when I was like, okay, I want to get married. I want a wife. Like, I want love for real. And like, you know, if you guys know my story, you know, it all went south. I wanted a girl in the church and it didn't work out. And, you know, I went to outside of the church and looked around for girls, and it just messed me up. And that's what red pilled me. That's what red pilled me to think that, or to know about female nature and all this stuff. So, you know, it's hard, man. So I'm trying to be encouraging, and I'm trying to say, you know, stay alive. And so I kind of want to talk about that a little today, like how to be happy, you know, because there's a lot of guys out there like this, young men. And I say men, it's not women. It's not women. Women aren't unhappy like men are unhappy, because women have attention. Women have men attention. Women can get sex anytime they want. Women can get relationships anytime they want. Which is why any little girl who's like depressed, it's like, that's all in your head mostly, because you literally have the whole world in the palm of your hand as a woman. Even if you're ugly, like, you got it better. Ugly women can still get sex. An ugly man, it's over. It's just over. I mean, and that's the truth about the black pill. You know, unfortunately. But when I say it's over, I don't mean that your life is over. I mean that you're not going to be able to date very well. You're not going to be able to get sex very well. That's just a fact. It is. But it's nothing to kill yourself over. For real. I've been going through it, man. It's been 5 years since I've met a new girl. Before that, yeah, I had like 26 lays. But even that was shitty, because they were barely 5s out of 10, fat girls off Plenty of Fish. And then even that changed. Now I can't even pull fat girls. Right? And they were pretty bummy too. It's just like, it's almost better to not do it. You know, I had opportunities recently to get laid, and this girl's just so nasty. I was just like, nah, I'm not even going to do it. Like, I'm not going to put that risk. I'd rather be alive, you know, even though sometimes I feel like I wouldn't rather be alive. So I relate with you, man. I relate with what you're going through. You know, suicide seems like the way out. It's like, maybe that's the answer, you know, like, that's the way out. Oh, my pain will be over. Like, maybe it'll be better on the other side. Well, I'm a Christian, so, you know, that's what I believe. I touched Jesus. I got born again. I touched life, you know, God's life in the Bible and at church, and that changed me. But even that's a burden, because it doesn't just stop there. You would think like, oh, it just stops there. God loves me. I got salvation. Now God's going to bless me and take care of me and all this. No, it doesn't work like that, because even God has an agenda, right? Even God has an agenda. I could show you Bible verses that talk about God arranges our sufferings. And that's a mind fuck. All the shit that I went through in my life, God arranged. All the sufferings, all the girls who rejected me, all the girls who, you know, didn't want to marry me. Me being single at my age, mid-30s, you know. It really, really sucks. You know, and I thought God was going to take care of me. I thought God was going to bless me with, you know, I'll be able to afford anything I want. I'll be able to have a house. I'll be able to, you know, live on my own, have a wife and a family. None of that happened. None of that happened. I thought that was going to happen when I first became a Christian, because I read those verses that said God cares for all our needs and blah, blah, blah. It didn't happen. Now, granted, I've had a roof over my head so far. I've had food every day so far. So God technically has taken care of my basic necessities, but I believe love is a necessity. Someone told me a while ago that sex is a necessity. It's a bodily necessity. And I think love is a psychological and emotional, soulical, necessity. And God hasn't cared for me that way. So I got a bone to pick with them on the one hand. Right? And I'm mad at him on the one hand. On the other hand, he's my only hope in a way, right? Because what's the world? You know, there's three things in the universe. There's mankind, there's God, and there's Satan. And what does God represent? God represents his kingdom, his spiritual kingdom. What does Satan represent? The devil represents the worldly kingdom. This is all in the Bible. The worldly kingdom is everything we see. The systematic government, the systematic commerce, market, right? Free market. This is under Satan's control. People act like communism is the answer. Oh, communism this, communism that, because capitalism's so evil and blah, blah, blah. It's all evil. Communism's evil. Capitalism is evil because all of those systems are run by Satan. Go look at the history of communism. It's bloody, it's evil, and so is capitalism in its own way. It's a more free system. People can kind of quote unquote do what they want, but we're all ball and chained to our work. We're all ball and chained to money. Money is so important that it's probably the number one factor in why women choose men. Money, resources, the type of lifestyle that he provides. That's how important it is. That's how important money is. Everybody needs money to survive. This is how Satan enslaves people. The Bible even says that. It says that in Revelation. I think Revelation 18, where it talks about how Babylon had entrapped the souls of men. And there's a footnote that talks about it, and it says that people give their lives, not even just their lives, their souls for money to stay alive. In fact, let me look that up right now. I'm going to show you guys, because that's a verse I've been kind of meditating on lately, because it's so true about life. And that was one of the things that really attracted me to God in the Bible, was the truth in it, and how the truth was so anti everything that I was concerned with, because I was so concerned with being rich, and not even being rich, but just having enough money to survive, having a nice job and all this stuff. And when I couldn't, when I got sick, and went through all that suffering because of that, God was a beacon of hope for me. The Bible was a beacon of hope. Oh, God's going to take care of me. I don't have to worry about all the, okay, that's a big hope, right? Anyway, there's a lot to it. It's convoluted, but let me read these verses for you real quick. This is Revelation chapter 18. After these things I saw another angel coming down out of heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illumined with his glory. And he cried with a strong voice, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. So Babylon the Great represents, the Bible has all these metaphors and kind of pictures, right? The term Babylon represents world government. It represents the current world government. It represents how, commerce and trade and politics and the government functions, and really who and what is behind it, which is Satan, right? So fallen is Babylon the Great, and she has become a dwelling place of demons and a hold of every unclean spirit and a hold of every unclean and hateful bird. Now, I love this Bible because it has footnotes. If anybody wants this Bible, just tell me, because I'll send you a link. This is the fall of the material Babylon, the city of Rome, at the end of the Great Tribulation. The Bible reveals three aspects of Babylon: the literal aspect referring to ancient Babel or Babylon, today's Iraq; the religious aspect referring to the Roman Catholic Church, spoken of in chapter 17; the material aspect referring to the city of Rome, mentioned in this chapter. And he talks about in other footnotes how Rome is the influence of the world system, right? And the world system is influenced by religion, commerce, and politics, right? And this all comes together under Satan. So Satan runs those three aspects: religion, politics, and commerce. And that's how he enslaves humankind. There's a picture in the book of Genesis of the children of Israel being enslaved by Pharaoh and Moses coming in and saving them. I'm sure many people know about that story. They even made movies about it. Well, that story is a picture of humankind being enslaved by Satan. Pharaoh represents Satan, and they're all building bricks for Pharaoh, as it were. And the bricks that they're building are based out of the money that they save and the job and the 9 to 5 we all work to survive. We're toiling. We're building bricks for Pharaoh. This is also a curse in Genesis chapter 3. God actually cursed mankind with this curse, if you go back and you know that much about the Bible. But Moses represents Christ in that he comes and saves people out of that system to go serve God. This is what Christ does in the act that he accomplished on the cross by his vicarious death. Vicarious means in someone's stead. So he died in our stead, right? So his death was a vicarious death. There's another word for it, I forgot. I can't remember. There's another word for it, but it's also an atoning death. There's another word for it, but there's also it's also an atoning death. Atonement means recovering something, bringing something back, right? So God's death was vicarious in our stead, meaning we didn't have to. We died in him, essentially, metaphorically. We didn't have to die ourselves, because the result of sin, the result of disobedience to God, which is what Adam and Eve did, subsequently, inherently, we sinned through them because we are their descendant. So inherently, we inherited that sin nature of being disobedient to God, and that's how everybody is born. This is why Christ's death on the cross, and through faith in that death, it accomplishes God's judgment. So when God put Christ on the cross, he literally judged all of mankind. He literally judged Christ for all of mankind. So instead of us being judged, which the result of sin and disobedience to God should be death, God judged Christ, his son. So this is the importance of Christ's death on the cross. People miss that. This is the basic essential gospel, is that Christ's death is a reconciling death, atoning death. It atones us, it reconciles us back to God. Meaning, when we believe in Christ, we are all that sin and all that separation that we inherited through that act of disobedience from Adam and Eve is all taken care of. God judged it on the cross with Christ. Christ died, meaning he died in our stead, and we are now reconciled back to God. That's why what Christ did on the cross is the most amazing thing that ever happened in history, because it brings people back to God. So I'm not sure I went off on that tangent, but yeah. So Moses. So when everybody in the world right now is a slave to Satan, whether they realize it or not. Everybody who hasn't accepted Christ, everybody who's living in this world, right? Buying and selling, working, right? Doing all this stuff to, better their lives. And I need this car, and I need this shoes, and I need that, and I need this, and all these things, they're enslaved. All this is a representative of enslavement. So when we turn back to God through Christ's death, we're essentially freed from that slavery, which is the picture of the children of Israel, what Moses did with the children of Israel. He freed them from that slavery, right? So essentially in our everyday lives, if we come to God through Christ, we can experience freedom from that slavery, right? All these things that we think we need, we can experience happiness and joy outside of those things, in God. That's essentially kind of the basic bare bones gospel. There's a lot more to it after that, but I don't want to just take up all this time talking about that. But I want to finish reading this, because this is so... it talks about what I just said, right? Fallen is Babylon the Great, and she has become a dwelling place of demons and a hold of every unclean spirit. Well, that's the world today, right? It's so demonic. Turn on your TV. Just fornication, lying, cheating, greed, fighting, right? Nastiness, right? Well, what is that? That's demonic. It's encouraged. Humans are being possessed by demons and being stirred up by demons to lust and greed and fight and envy and pride and all these 7 deadly sins, right? Which the Bible talks about, right? All these sins, they're being stirred up by this world system, because it's saying, hey, you need to be like Puff Daddy. Hey, you need to be like John Cena. Hey, you need to be like Brad Pitt. You need to be like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You need to be like LeBron James. Look how successful these guys are. Why aren't you rich like them? This is Satan putting the carrot in front of your face. Hey, go out and sell your soul for riches. Work your whole life so you can one day be rich, and then you'll be happy, and then you'll be comfortable. It's like, no, dude, you can be comfortable and happy now. You just gotta, renounce those things. No, I'm not gonna give my soul to go work. I'm not gonna give my soul to be rich. I'm gonna enjoy my life today. And one of the best ways to do that, I would say, is to turn to God. Now, there's a lot more to it, which I can get into. It doesn't just end there. It's not, which is something that I have a problem with. I can make a whole nother video about that. But again, let me finish this. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the fury of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich by the power of her luxury. Is that not the world today? Is that not the world today? Right? All these rich politicians, they're kings essentially, right? They might hide behind democracy and, oh, we're liberal, and oh, we're, for the people. We live in a democracy for the people, all that guise and veneer of BS, right? All that, subterfuge, right? They're kings. They're taking your tax money and pocketing it. They own private islands. They're rich. They're in it for the money. They don't care about the people. That's what politics is. It's phony. God knows it. He talks about it in the book of Daniel. He's talking about it right here. All the nations have drunk of the wine of the fury of her fornication. This is spiritual fornication in this sense, meaning fornication means leaving your husband, right? Or excuse me, fornication essentially is sex outside of marriage, but it can also be viewed as sleeping around, right, with somebody who's not your husband or somebody who's not your wife, right? It's essentially meaning you're not loyal. You're not loyal to any one person. You are essentially just loose and open and you're sleeping around. That's the context of this fornication, right? And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, meaning they're in on it. They're in on this fornication. There's no loyalty. There's no propriety. There's no wholesomeness. There's no honesty, truth, godliness. It's all just fury and wrath, right? It's all just selfishness. It's all self-gain. It's all narcissism, right? And the merchants of the earth have become rich by the power of her luxury. What are the merchants of the earth? The merchants of the earth are like the traders, right? The Trader, right? Those who buy and sell, who, people who play the stock market, people who have businesses, people who are really greedy for riches, right? The power of her luxury. Luxury in this sense is not positive. Luxury in the sense of this context of this verse is really, it's essentially like somebody who's eating a big steak meal, drinking wine right next to somebody who's homeless, right next to some starving African kid, right? That's what this luxury means. Selfish luxury. You're not sharing. You're not helping anyone else. It's the selfishness of your luxury, right? This is the context of what he's saying here. And I heard another voice out of heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you do not participate in her sins and that you do not receive her plagues." Well, that's a pretty solemn warning, meaning all this selfishness, all this gain and lust and greed is sinful in the eyes of God, right? There's so much context here that's not being talked about, but if you read the whole Bible, you understand that they don't give glory to God. They're not helping anyone out. They're not being truthful and no, they're exploiting others. They're exploiting labor. Look at Jeff Bezos, right? His Amazon workers get what, like $15 an hour? This guy just spent billions to fly a rocket into space. That $1 billion he could have given every American in the entire United States $2 million or $3 million, something like that. However much a billion is, I think it's like 1,000 million or something, right? He could have given every American $2 million, $2.5 million, something like that. Totally ended poverty, right? He didn't do that. He just spent $1 billion. I think it was like 1.6 billion or however much he spent to go to space. And so did that guy that owns the Virgin Company or whatever, Mark Branson or whatever that guy's name is. What is that, man? What is that? That is greed. That is selfishness to the nth degree. There's not even a word for how selfish that is. It's hyper selfish. It is absolute self. It is just satanic, right? Like, you could help the world. You could build houses for homeless people, and you're spending all this money on jet fuel, acting like it's funny. Like, this is why God wants to come back and end this earth. Anyway, for her sins have accumulated up to heaven, and God has remembered her unrighteousness. There you go, man. There you go. This place is sinful. This earth is a cumulative sin. A cumulative unrighteousness. Says right there, verse 18, chapter 18, verse 5, right there. Her sins have accumulated up to heaven, and God has remembered her righteousness. Pay her back even as she has paid, and double to her double according to her works, and the cup which she has mixed to her double. What does that mean? It means Babylon, this materialistic world out here, is exploiting people. It's hurting people. It's slavery. Okay? As much as she has glorified herself and lived luxuriously, as much torment and sorrow as she has caused, give to her. For she says in her heart, I sit a queen, and I am not a widow, and I shall by no means cease sorrow. Come on, bro. You're suffering out here because you're poor. You're suffering out here because you're ugly and no woman wants you. All this stuff. Here's God coming in and saying, I know you're suffering like that. And I'm going to judge this place. Right? Here you go. Here's the judgment. Chapter 18, verse 8. Therefore, in one day her plagues will come, death and sorrow and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire. For the Lord God who judges her is strong. God's going to judge this earth. He's going to judge this earth, bro. All this excess, all this luxury, all these rich people, all these happy people who are content, and all these riches and all this bullshit, God's going to judge it. In one day, he's going to wipe it out with fire. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament over her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off because of the fear of her torment, saying, Woe, woe, the great city Babylon, the strong city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. And the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargo anymore. Cargo in gold and silver and precious stone and pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and every kind of Thion wood, every vessel of ivory and